Hi there, welcome to our class and see you again. And this week, in the first week, we are going to talk about chapter 1 of our textbook. And I believe that you have watched the video for the introduction to our class and reviewed the syllabus already. And uh, so make sure that you have read the syllabus carefully and make sure that you understand every part of the syllabus. So in this video, we're going to talk about chapter 1 of our class. So the chapter 1 is a general introduction to the textbook. And also we're going to talk about the general framework of our course, the general framework of what can be covered in this entire course. So this chapter is about the invitation to personal learning and change. So you may notice that this class, this course, is about helping everyone learn how to have a personal growth or personal change. It is about changing, it is about growing, it is about learning how to change and growing. So in this chapter, we're going to talk about some basic stuff, general theoretical framework of how to achieve personal learning and change. So, so the general framework of every lecture is like this. So first of all, we need to read the assigned readings, the corresponding chapters for that week, usually 2 or 3 chapters per week. And also you need to watch the lecture videos. So there will be every lecture video for one chapter. So this is the first video for one chapter, which is chapter 1, invitation to personal learning and change. And also afterwards, we need to do the journal assignments and also take the what have you learned survey at the end of the week. So today, besides reading the syllabus, besides watching the videos, and also you need to read chapter 1 first. Yeah, be sure you read chapter 1 first and watch this video. If you haven't read the chapter 1, you can quit from this video. And also, if your book hasn't arrived by the end of this week, what are you gonna do? So if your book hasn't arrived, or if you haven't purchased any textbook yet, by the end of this week, and you have the chance, you don't have the chance to get it by the end of the week, you can watch this video first, and then when the book has arrived, you can read the textbook. So let's start today's lecture. So first of all, I would like to think about one question. What is personal growth? So when you hear the phrase personal growth, what do you think of? And that's a very interesting question, because personal growth sounds easy, sounds understandable, but when you think about it carefully, what does that mean exactly? What is growth? Right. So personal growth seems to mean that you as a person, you have growth, you grow. And what does that mean? Apparently, it's beyond physical growth. It's beyond just the growth of your physical body, but there's growth in other aspects. So after all, when you hear the phrase personal growth, what do you think of? And you can think of some examples, personal examples of your own personal growth. So when you have examples, you can think about them and give examples to the last question, what is personal growth? And you can pause the video right now and think about this question. Try to answer it by yourself, or you can find somebody else in your environment or at home. If you are at home, you can find your family and talk about this question to this family member or anyone that you can find. If there's anyone, if there isn't anyone around, you can answer this question to yourself. You can have a self-reflection of this question: what is personal growth? Okay, you can pause the video right now and answer this question. Okay, so let's continue. So when I see this phrase, when I read this textbook for the first time, and I do not have a really good answer for this question. So what is a personal growth? What does that mean? It seems like I'm growing all the time, every day, every moment. But sometimes I cannot have the feeling that I have grown, or I'm growing, or I have growth every day because I'm with myself every day, at every moment. I don't have a feeling. But sometimes when I do some kind of self-reflection, when I think about my own personal growth, it seems like I can give some examples to myself. Uh, so examples can be that I'm working out, I'm exercising almost every day. Before that, when I was a child, I wasn't aware of that. I wasn't aware that physical health is very important. I wasn't aware that uh, our physical bodies need physical exercise. We need to exercise every day, almost every day, at least half hour a day to maintain the physical health or have a good physical change or physical growth. I was aware of that in college, and I was trying to exercise every day, but I failed because it's a habit. It's a new thing for me at that time. It was totally new. I couldn't do that every day. I couldn't maintain this habit every day. I couldn't exercise every day. Uh, it seems like was really frustrating. It was for me at that time, but I try my best to keep exercising every day. But sometimes I fail. Sometimes I just don't want to move. I don't want to go exercise because it was hard for me. Uh, but later on, I kind of had that kind of a habit of running or jogging. And then later, I went to the gym, and yeah, that was definitely personal growth for me. So you can see that there was a gradual change at every stage. Gradually, I was maintaining the habit of exercising regularly. I think that is an example of a personal growth. And also, there are other examples of personal personal growth. Uh, Let me give you another example of about myself. So before college, or when I was a child, or when I was in college, I had a really strange belief that I should argue with somebody if I really want to communicate with that person. So I should oppose that person. I mean that if that person says something, I should say, no, you are wrong. What I say is right. I always want to persuade that person. I always want to confront with that person if that person have some kind of ideas or beliefs. I always want to find something in their ideas or beliefs that are wrong, and I will say something against that person, against that person's ideas and beliefs. I thought that that was the right way to communicate. And you can probably imagine that it was my relationships were not really nice. It was really hard for me to have good relationships with other people, except my parents and relatives. After all, they were my parents. Whatever I said to them, they will they will treat me well because they were my parents. But for other people like classmates or friends or any people I saw, I always uh, try to like say something against them. I think that that's a healthy way of communication. That was my idea, but later I realized that there were other kinds of ways, other kinds of communication. You don't have to argue with somebody when you interact with that person. When you want to show the friendliness to that person. I wasn't aware of that, and later I was aware that oh, those people were not really happy when I was talking. And at that time, I thought that oh, they didn't like me at all because I don't know for the reason I don't know. Later, I found out probably the way I was talking to them make them unhappy because I was always against somebody. I was always against those people, even though I agree with them. And but that at that moment when I talking to them, I was against them. That was my problem. I was aware that later on, and later I I do not want to argue with anybody when I talk to somebody right now. That's the situation right now. I try to like agree with that person when I'm talking to that person. So that's what I'm trying to do. So I obviously changed a lot in terms of the ways of talking to other people. So I think that's one example of personal growth. So these two examples are all about personal growth, and personal growth make you better, stronger, and happier. And in the textbook, and the authors ask a question at the beginning of the chapter: what is happiness? What brings happiness? I think personal growth brings happiness. Happiness is something that everyone wants. But what exactly is happiness? I think that in certain perspective, happiness is a signal for you to know. So you know you are happy or not. You know you have happiness or not. Your body, your body informs your current situation. If your current situation is not good, your feeling is not happy. You have a feeling of unhappiness. But if your current situation is very good, you have a feeling of happiness. So happiness or not happy, unhappiness or happiness are the science for your current situation. So when you have personal growth, you can be happier and happier. Probably you're not that happy before, or you're unhappy, and you can grow and you can be happier later on. So I think that's the meaning of personal growth, and that's one of the meanings of why we are taking this course. Why we are discussing about personal growth and happiness. And in the textbook, there are a lot of introductions about previous psychologists' efforts to understand happiness, to understand personal growth, to understand why humans grow and how humans grow. And there are some philosophies or psychology, or branches of psychology that study personal growth. And let's talk about some of them. And in the textbook, there are a lot of introduction, but we in this lecture we can talk about a few of them. The first branch of psychology is called positive psychology. So in the Psych 1 class, you have a basic understanding of those branches of psychology, I believe. There are clinical psychology and social psychology, cognitive psychology, developmental psychology, biopsychology. So all these are major branches of psychology, but positive psychology is a pretty new phenomenon in the history of psychology. It was actually founded in 1999. So it's like, it has a 22 years old history. Yeah, 22 years history. So it's one of the approach to understanding personal growth and studying personal growth. And that is called positive psychology. So that's watch a video. In this video, this guy is called Martin Seligman. So he was one of the founders of positive psychology. So there were two founders of positive psychology in 1999, and Martin Seligman was one of them. And in this video, Martin introduced what is positive psychology. Let's watch it.
When I was president of the American Psychological Association, they tried to media train me. And an encounter I had with CNN summarizes what I'm going to be talking about today, which is the 11th reason to be optimistic. The editor of Discover told us 10 of them. I'm going to give you the 11th. So they came to me, CNN, and they said, Professor Seligman, would you tell us about the state of psychology today? We'd like to interview you about that. And I said, great. He said, but this is CNN, so you only get a soundbite. So, well, how many words do I get? I said, well, one. The cameras rolled, and she said, Professor Seligman, what is the state of psychology today? Good. Cut. That won't do. We'd really better give you a longer soundbite. Well, how many words do I get this time? You get 2. Dr. Seligman, what is the state of psychology today? Not good. Look, Dr. Seligman, you can see you're really not comfortable in this medium. We better give you a real soundbite. This time you can have 3 words. Professor Seligman, what is the state of psychology today? Not good enough. And that's what I'm going to be talking about. I want to say why psychology was good, why it was not good, and how it may become, in the next 10 years, good enough. And by parallel summary, I want to say the same thing about technology, about entertainment and design, because I think the issues are very similar. So why was psychology good? Well, for more than 60 years, psychology worked within the disease model. 10 years ago, when I was on an airplane and I introduced myself to my seatmate and told them what I did, they'd move away from me. And because quite rightly, they were saying psychology is about finding what's wrong with you, spot the loony. And now when I tell people what I do, they move toward me. And what was good about psychology, about the $30 billion investment NIMH made, about working in the disease model, about what you mean by psychology, is that 60 years ago, none of the disorders were treatable. It was entirely smoke and mirrors. And now 14 of the disorders are treatable, 2 of them actually curable. And the other thing that happened is that a science developed, a science of mental illness, that we found out that we could take fuzzy concepts like depression, alcoholism, and measure them with rigor, that we could create a classification of the mental illnesses, that we could understand the causality of the mental illnesses. We could look across time at the same people, for example, who are genetically vulnerable to schizophrenia, and ask what the contribution of mothering, of genetics are. And we could isolate third variables by doing experiments on the mental illnesses. And best of all, we were able in the last 50 years to invent drug treatments and psychological treatments. And then we were able to test them rigorously in random assignment, placebo-controlled designs, throw out the things that didn't work, keep the things that actively did. And the conclusion of that is that psychology and psychiatry of the last 60 years can actually claim that we can make miserable people less miserable. And I think that's terrific. I'm proud of it. But what was not good, the consequences of that, were 3 things. The first was moral, that psychologists and psychiatrists became victimologists, pathologizers, that our view of human nature was that if you were in trouble, bricks fell on you. And we forgot that people made choices and decisions. We forgot responsibility. That was the first cost. The second cost was that we forgot about you people. We forgot about improving normal lives. We forgot about a mission to make relatively untroubled people happier, more fulfilled, more productive. And genius, high talent, became a dirty word. No one works on that. And the third problem about the disease model is in our rush to do something about people in trouble, in our rush to do something about repairing damage, it never occurred to us to develop interventions to make people happier, positive interventions. So that was not good. And so that's what led people like Nancy Etkoff, Dan Gilbert, Mike Csikszentmihalyi, myself to work in something I call positive psychology, which has 3 aims. The first is that psychology should be just as concerned with human strength as it is with weakness. It should be just as concerned with building strength as with repairing damage. It should be interested in the best things in life, and it should be just as concerned with making the lives of normal people fulfilling and with genius, with nurturing high talent. So in the last 10 years and the hope for the future, we've seen the beginnings of a science of positive psychology, a science of what makes life worth living. It turns out that we can measure different forms of happiness, and any of you for free can go to that website and take the entire panoply of tests of happiness. You can ask, How do you stack up for positive emotion, for meaning, for flow against literally tens of thousands of other people? We created the opposite of the diagnostic manual of the insanities, a classification of the strengths and virtues that looks at the sex ratio, how they're defined, how to diagnose them, what builds them and what gets in their way. We found that we could discover the causation of the positive states, the relationship between left hemispheric activity and right hemispheric activity as a cause of happiness. I spent my life working on extremely miserable people, and I've asked the question, how do extremely miserable people differ from the rest of you? And starting about 6 years ago, we asked about extremely happy people, and how do they differ from the rest of us? And it turns out there's one way, very surprised, they're not more religious, they're not in better shape, they don't have more money, they're not better looking, they don't have more good events and fewer bad events. The one way in which they differ, they're extremely social. They don't sit in seminars on Saturday morning. They don't spend time alone. Each of them is in a romantic relationship, and each has a rich repertoire of friends. But watch out here. This is merely correlational data, not causal, and it's about happiness in the first Hollywood sense I'm going to talk about. Happiness of ebullience and giggling and good cheer. And I'm going to suggest to you that's not nearly enough in just a moment. We found we could begin to look at interventions over the centuries, from the Buddha to Tony Robbins. About 120 interventions have been proposed that allegedly make people happy. And we find that we've been able to manualize many of them, and we actually carry out random assignment efficacy and effectiveness studies. That is, which ones actually make people lastingly happier. In a couple of minutes, I'll tell you about some of those results. But the upshot of this is that the mission I want psychology to have, in addition to its mission of curing the mentally ill, in addition to its mission of making miserable people less miserable, is, can psychology actually make people happier? And to ask that question, happy is not a word I use very much. We've had to break it down into what I think is askable about happy. And I believe there are three different, and I call them different because different interventions build them. It's possible to have one rather than the other. Three different happy lives. The first happy life is the pleasant life. This is a life in which you have as much positive emotion as you possibly can, and the skills to amplify it. The second is a life of engagement, a life in your work, your parenting, your love, your leisure. Time stops for you. That's what Aristotle was talking about. And third, the meaningful life. So I want to say a little bit about each of those lives and what we know about them. The first life is the pleasant life. And it's simply, as best we can find it, it's having as many of the pleasures as you can, as much positive emotion as you can, and learning the skill.
Okay, so let's stop here. If you want to watch this video more, and you can watch it. I'll post a link to this video on Canvas, but concerned with the time constraints, so let's stop the video here. Okay, so in this video, it introduces why there is a positive psychology, why traditional psychology is not good enough. Let's see.
Over time and space.
And one of the these are the two founders of positive psychology, and the guy on the left, who is Martin Seligman, is one of the founders, and he is also the speaker of that in that video. And the other professor that founded positive psychology is called it's on the right. This professor, his name is Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi, and he is living in Los Angeles area right now. So he's actually the professor from my school. So I am a PhD student at the Claremont Graduate University. So some of you may have heard of it. This school is in Claremont. It's not far away from Rancho Cucamonga. And Csikszentmihalyi is actually a retired professor from Claremont Graduate University. And Martin Seligman is from University of Pennsylvania. He's on the East Coast. And these are two founders of positive psychology. And so 20 years ago, they found that traditional psychology was not good enough. First of all, traditional psychology was very, very, very successful in discovering and curing the people who are miserable, or people have psychological problems, or the people do not have a good life. The traditional psychology approach is really good at discovering them and treating them and making them less miserable. But the problem is there are several problems. One of the problems is that in this society, more than 90% of the people are normal, regular people. We are not patients. We are not patients with severe illness, mental illness. So most of us are healthy people, or at least we are not patients. We are not suffering from severe mental illness. The traditional psychology approach did not do a very good job to study this kind of people. They really focus on the traditional psychologists really focus on the people who have problems. And also there's a less focus on, because the traditional psychology approach relies on a particular model or paradigm. It's called a disease model. It assumes that, oh, you have a disease. What's wrong with you? Find the reason and find the method to cure you, remove the disease. If your disease is removed, you are good. You are good to go. So we are not interested in you anymore. The problem of this kind of disease model is that it focuses too much on illness, too much focus too much on weaknesses of human beings. There's really less focus on strength, on good stuff, on good things in life. It's not about why people are happy, why people are genius, why people are talents, why people grow well, why people outperform than others. So the traditional psychology approach does not really focus on that area, but they focus on why people are weak, why people have illness, why people commit crimes. So that's you know what? So the start of psychology came from the people's questions that why some people commit crimes. They want to study them in 19th century. So that's why there was modern psychology coming out. So those people in 19th century, they firstly was curious that why some people make crimes, how they were different from the normal people. So they started to analyze and study these criminals and try to find some interesting findings. That's the beginning of psychology. So that's no wonder that's why psychology really take the disease model, because they really want to focus on why people are not good or weak. But in positive psychology, points out a new direction. The goal of positive psychology is to study why normal people become better, why people are good, why people are smart or happy or have strengths. So the goal is to study individuals' optimal functioning. So optimal functioning is a concept which describes somebody's state that that person is the best. The person is the best that he or she can be. So that's optimal functioning. So this person functions very well, functions the best, and also help the people, our normal people, to flourish. So help us to be better, be happier, to have a personal growth, and to have strength, and so forth. So help study why people are good, better, have strength, and help them to flourish, to be better, to be happier, to have strength. So that's the goal of positive psychology. So here are basically two questions to ask in positive psychology in comparing the traditional psychology approach. The first question is, what works? What works to people? What is working to people? Why people have stress? Why some people have that kind of stress and why other people have those kind of stress? Why people are happy? Why people have a good life? So they study what works. That's the question that positive psychology asks. That's one of them. Instead of asking what doesn't work, they ask what works. And the second question is what is right with people instead of what is wrong with people. So among these good people, what is right with them? Why this person is a talent? Why this guy has this kind of stress? Why this guy is happy? Why that guy is having a really fulfilling and meaningful life? So that's the second question that positive psychology asks. What is right with people? So these are two questions that positive psychology asks majorly. And there are three very important aspects in positive psychology that support this discipline. So it's called the three pillars of positive psychology. So majorly, every pillar is a really big realm of things that we need to study. So there are three of them, three aspects that positive psychology focuses on. The first pillar is called the positive states or positive experiences. You know, states are something that are temporary for a person. For example, I'm happy right now, or I'm nervous right now, I'm sweating right now. So it's a state. This state can be physical or can be psychological, can be emotional, and can be social. So those states are changing very fast, and those states are all temporary. They won't last very long time. Such as emotions. So in positive psychology, we study positive emotions, such as optimism. It's also a state. It can be a state. Optimism means that we are expecting good things will happen in the future, especially to ourselves. Something good will happen to us in the future. So that's called optimism. That's one very important state that people have when they are happy. So oftentimes, happy people are optimistic. So they always, not always, but since they sometimes, oftentimes expect good things will happen to them in the future. But it's a state. In other words, one person may be optimistic today, but that person may be not optimistic the other day, next day, and in the third day, the person go back to be optimistic, and it fluctuates and changes all the time. So that's called state or experience. People have experiences every moment. So one of the pillars in positive psychology is positive experiences or states. The second pillar is called positive characteristics. So characteristics are like a personality types, or like a strength, personal character strength, like a courage, like a love of learning, like a humility, and stuff. And some personalities such as extroversion, all these are characteristics. And positive psychology also focus on studying positive characteristics. One typical example is a bunch of character strength. Martin Seligman, the guy who spoke just now, summarized 24 character strength. So he had a team, and that team summarized all the texts, all the works in history in every country, and found that there are 24 character strengths for all human beings. So love of learning, courage, and humility, and other stuff are examples of character strength. And the third pillar is called the positive institutions. So institutions are places that people stay, like schools, like a community, like hospitals. So they study why these places are good. These are places are positive, like why these schools are positive, why these schools make children happy, make teachers happy, why this community is positive, why this community make people have personal growth or happy, why people are happy in this kind of community, not other kinds of community. So these are examples of positive institutions. So these are three pillars of positive psychology. And there are some characteristics of positive psychology that is different from other stuff. The first one is that this branch of psychology is a science. It means that it's based on empirical research. It's based on science, scientific research. So in positive psychology, people use scientific methods to get findings, to get insights. And also it's rigorous, it's strict to use the scientific methods to get the insights. And also the second characteristic of positive psychology is that it's based on evidence. It means that we cannot just say anything that we want to say. We must have evidence. So with the evidence, we can say, oh, this is the case. We need to conform our ideas with the evidence that we see. So we need to collect and analyze the evidence or the data. So data is the quantitative evidence. Okay, so we have talked about positive psychology. That's one approach to study personal growth. And right now we start to introduce another branch of psychology. It's called humanistic psychology. Probably in the Psych 1 class, you have known about humanistic psychology because it was a really important phase in history of psychology in 1960s and 70s. There was a rise of humanistic psychology. I think the humanistic psychology was a pioneer to study personal growth, and its approach that focuses on humans, focuses on the growth, the positive changes of humans. So also humanistic psychology, in my personal viewpoint, is the theoretical base of this textbook. The textbook, you never had a choice. This is the base. So the three authors of this textbook, I I feel like they are really followers of humanistic psychology. So humanistic psychology is very important in this textbook. So let's know about the history of the humanistic psychology. So humanistic psychology can solve or answer this question: why do people grow? So I think that's the central question that humanistic psychology focuses on. Try to answer why people grow. So why people are just like things? Why people are not just like streets or buildings? They're all that. They look all the same at every moment, almost every moment. Why people are not like stones? Stones are dead. They're not live. So the stones are, no matter they are where they are located, they look like that. They don't have feelings. They don't have the intentions. They don't have motivation. They are just laying down there. So why aren't people like stones? Why do people grow? Why they change towards some kind of direction? So that's the question humanistic psychology wants to answer. So here's a very important concept in humanistic psychology. So it's called a self-actualization. So it tells how people grow, how people change. So first of all, there's an assumption that people always change, no matter it's the physical body or our spiritual or inner world. So our spiritual world or psychological world is always changing because we are always thinking, we are always having some kind of emotions. Our emotions are always changing. Sometimes we are happy, sometimes we are not happy, sometimes we are sad, and sometimes we are calm, and sometimes we are excited. So why does this happen? Because inside of everyone, there is a tendency called self-actualization. That's the tendency make us change toward a certain direction. So that tendency make us to fulfill our potential, make us to become what we are capable of becoming. In other words, we have the potential. We can be a lot of things. I mean, like we can be very, very excellent. We can be very, very happy. There is a potential in every one of us. So that tendency make us to go to that direction, to fulfill that potential. So there's a potential. It's not obvious. It's under the ground. So we have a tendency to dig that potential out. So it's not underground anymore. It's above the ground. So in our life, we want to find our potential and dig them out. Potential is underground before, but we want to fulfill our potentials. Also, it's above the ground. So finally, we realize our potential. We become the best. So that's called the self-actualization tendency. So it means that we actualize ourselves. So that's the central concept in humanistic psychology. So with that concept, with that belief or assumption, personal growth is a very natural phenomenon. So we all have that tendency to have personal growth. Every one of us has, no matter who we are, no matter how we are, no matter we are healthy or have illness or mental illness, even, because that's rooted in the human nature. It's like it's like a program written in the CPU. You know, every computer or laptop has a CPU. So it's like the design of the CPU. So having personal growth is the deepest level of design of human. So as a human, we have the tendency to grow. So we have personal growth. That's a very natural phenomenon. So everyone's life is like a journey that never stops. You are always on the way. You are always on the journey. There is a destination far away. You probably can see it. You probably cannot. But you are always on the way. You are always traveling through a certain route. So that's the implications from the assumptions of humanistic psychology. So why we know about humanistic psychology? How is it different from other kinds of psychology? So what is unique about humanistic psychology? So there is an assumption that other kinds of psychology doesn't have. The assumption is that human nature is inherently good. So this assumption is similar to assumption of the positive psychology. So if you think about positive psychology more carefully, so there's an assumption that human nature can be good. We can be happy. We can be talents. We can be excellent. We can have strength. So there's a positive side of human nature. Human nature is good. And it's against a lot of other kinds of philosophies or beliefs that human nature is evil. But humanistic psychology assumes that human nature is good. And that's why people have the tendency to be good, right? And also it's based on the belief that if the environment is good enough, people can have personal growth. People can flourish. People can realize themselves, can have the self-actualization realized. So what does that mean? There is a metaphor to describe this. So that's a true story. So in Death Valley, so Death Valley is a national park in California. It's adjacent to Arizona. Probably some of you have been there. It's a really interesting place to visit. So this background picture is a photo of Death Valley. So you can see the mountains are pretty. The color of it is not green at all because it's Death Valley. Why it's called Death Valley? Probably because there's too less plants and there's too less raining. It's too dry, so plants cannot grow well. So Death Valley is not really dead, although it's called Death Valley. Although you cannot see a lot of plants or animals. In the spring of 2004, it rained 7 inches in the spring. Only 7 inches in that place for once. In summer, the ground was carpeted with flowers, like the picture, the background picture. So how to explain that? There's only 7 inches of raining in the spring, and in the summer, there's full of flowers. They're flourishing. How to explain that? Because there are seeds in the soil. They are buried in the soil. They are really ready to grow. They are really ready to become plants or flowers. But if there is lack of rainwater, they cannot grow well because to grow, the plants need water, and they need rainwater. If there is no rainwater, it will not grow. But there is only a little bit of rainwater, they will flourish. So there are seeds in the soil. They are ready to grow. So the environment must be good enough for them to grow, to flourish, to actualize their own potential. So humans, every person is like a seed. It's like a flower. We have the tendency to grow. We have the tendency to self-actualize, but the environment must be good enough for us to flourish. So environment may not be a physical environment, may not be a good enough nutrition or food. We also need a social environment in which every one of us can grow up. For example, we need to have parents, right, to take care of us when we are growing up. And one thing to mention about humanistic psychology is that it's more philosophical rather than empirical. So positive psychology is totally based on scientific method. It's totally empirical. It means that it's totally based on evidence. You must see the evidence, and then you can have the conclusion or insights. But humanistic psychology, it's not based on empirical evidence. Sometimes there's no evidence, but people who are believers of human psychology have their own observations, have their own reflections and thinking, and they have their own rationales to believe that humans are like that. So it's more philosophical. And then let's talk about some key figures or key development stages in humanistic psychology. So we'll talk about Alfred Adler, we'll talk about Carl Jung, we'll talk about Carl Rogers and his stuff, and finally we'll talk about Abraham Maslow. Okay, so Alfred Adler was a student of Sigmund Freud. So Sigmund Freud, I think you all know him. So he's the father of psychology. So he's also the founder of psychoanalysis. So he's really famous at analyzing people's unconsciousness or dreams. So Alfred Adler was one of the students of Sigmund Freud. And he was viewed as the forerunner of humanistic psychology because his ideas was really consistent with the ideas of humanistic psychology. Although Alfred Adler was much before the emergence of humanistic psychology. Humanistic psychology was emerging in 60s in the 20th century, but Alfred Adler was a famous psychologist in 19th century. So it was like decades before the appearance of humanistic psychology. But his ideas was really similar to humanistic psychology, and he has some thoughts on human nature. He believed that the self can determine the fate. It means that sometimes our fate was not totally controlled by our unconsciousness, not totally controlled by our sexual drive or some implicit drives. We have consciousness. We are conscious. We are aware. We can determine what we do. we can determine what can be like for us. So that's his thoughts on human nature. So and it just suggests that people are actually really proactive. They are not totally controlled by unconsciousness. So self-determination is possible. It means that the self can determine something, determine the fate or destiny. But how to realize that? How to have self-determination? We can do that. We can realize that in the community under the support of others. So that's the meaning of why people get together, why people live together, why people interact with each other. Why don't we just live alone? Because we can support each other. We can get rid of the control of unconsciousness. We can determine our own fate under the support of other people. So other people can support us, and we can support other people. We can support each other. We can help each other out. And he also mentioned that one concept is called social interest. So social interest is a person's interest in well-being of other people. So we are also interested in other people's well-being. Of course, we are interested in ourselves' well-being, but we are also interested in other people's well-being. So that's called social interest. So happiness actually comes from the connections or relationships among people. If the relationships are really meaningful, we can be happier. Also, Martin Seligman in that video mentioned that they found there was a research showing that those who are really happy, they all have good relationships with other people. So Alfred Adler his idea was supported by the research, by the empirical research. So having good relationships is really important for us to be happy, because we can support each other. We can help others to determine their own fate. Other people can help us to determine our own fate. So we don't have to be controlled by unconsciousness. We don't have to do something we do not want to do, but we do it, right? So we can do whatever, we can, to some degree, we can do things that we want to do. We can actualize ourselves. So that's the idea of by Alfred Adler. So next guy is Carl Jung. And he was also a student, one of the students of Sigmund Freud. So Alfred Adler and Carl Jung were both students of Sigmund Freud. And he has some thoughts and thinking on personality. So he was also earlier than the emergence of humanistic psychology, but his idea influences humanistic psychology a lot. So he's also a forerunner of humanistic psychology. So he has some thoughts on personality. So personality means something that is stable for everybody, and everybody has a unique set of personality. So it just basically tells us what everyone is like. So that's personality. So he believed that personality is not only shaped by past events. So because personality is not there when babies are born. So babies gradually have a personality, a certain type of personality when they grow up. So some past events that the babies experienced shaped what kind of personality they have in the future. But personality is also shaped by the future. In other words, it's also shaped by what we hope to become. So if I want to become be some person or be like this, be brave. Yeah, I want to be brave. That is possible. So I can strive toward this direction, being brave. And in the future, my personality may include being brave or having courage. That is possible. So, personality is what kind of person we are. Is not only determined by past events, determined by past experiences, but also influences by our willingness. What we want to be, we can be in the future. Yes. So he thought that the primary goal of life is to have a harmonious and integrated personality. So this entire process is called individuation. So it means that we gradually become an independent individual. We become a mature individual. So it's called individuation. We gradually have a harmonious and integrated personality. So inside our personality, the different components hang out with each other well. They do not really conflict each other. So that's the primary goal of life, based on Carl Jung. How to do that? How to have this process? We need to be aware every aspect, every part of ourselves, including those parts in the shadow, including those parts are dark. We consider them as dark, right? So we are not 100% kind or 100% good. Sometimes we are bad. Sometimes we do bad things, but we must be aware of every aspect of ourselves. We acknowledge them. We accept them. Yes, every part of ourselves is welcome. So under this condition, we can shape the personality that is integrated. Otherwise, our personality will be separated, will be divided into at least two parts, and they are conflicting each other all the time. And as a result, we cannot have a very good life. But to reverse that tendency, we need to be aware every aspect of ourselves. We accept them, we acknowledge them. Yeah, we need to accept the dark side of human nature so we can integrate every part of ourselves into a coherent entity. Yeah, so that is integrated together, and it's a harmonious one. It sounds really abstract and hard to understand. Probably because for me it's also really difficult to understand when I read about Carl Jung's thoughts, but what he believed makes sense. I think, yeah, because sometimes the pain is from the pain in our life is from the fact that we cannot accept the dark side of human nature. Sometimes we try too hard to be good. We try too hard so that we cannot accept the dark side of our human nature. As a result, we cannot have integrated personality that causes pain and a lot of conflicts in our mind. Yeah, so we need to accept every part of ourselves so that we can have a better personal growth. Yeah, here are some examples. Sometimes we are Oftentimes we are good people, but we sometimes hurt others. Oftentimes we are hardworking, but sometimes we are lazy. Yeah, so human nature is really complex. It's not something like, oh, I can maintain a perfect image all the time. It's not possible. Human nature is really complex, and our states, our thoughts are always changing in different moments, in different situations. Okay, so let's go to Maslow. And I think Abraham Maslow is very famous. He was one of the founders of humanistic psychology. His work, he published a lot of books in 1940s, 1950s, in 1960s. So in that age, humanistic psychology was born. So he's one of the major figures in that stage. So he has a theory called hierarchy of needs theory. Hierarchy of needs answers this question: what do people need to grow? So the people just don't grow out of nothing. They grow out of something. They have needs. They have the different kinds of needs. You know that. Do you remember the environment stuff? The metaphor that we talked about. There is a seed under the soil, but there need to be enough rainwater so that the seeds can become flowers. So we have the self-actualization tendency, but we also need a good enough environment. We have the needs to grow up. So in this theory, there are several types of needs, and these types of needs are categorized into hierarchy, into a hierarchy. So here is a picture on the right that shows the five levels of needs, 5 categories of needs. I think that you all have seen this before in Psych 1 or other places because it's really famous. So you can see it's a pyramid. The bottom level is the level 1 need. The on the top, that's the self-actualization. That's the level on the top. So on the bottom level, there's a physiological needs. Now, of course, to survive, you need to have water, to have food, and other kinds of nutrition to maintain the health of your physical body. So without physical body, your whole body is not there. So how to have other needs, right? So physiological needs are really on the base of all other needs. The need above physiological need is safety needs. It means that we need the protection from physical and psychological threats. So we need to protect our physical body from those physical hurts or physical threats, so that we need to live in a house. We cannot just live anywhere else. We need to live in a house. We need to protect ourselves from those dangerous animals. So that's why we build villages or we build cities. We keep those dangerous animals away. And also, we need to protect ourselves from psychological threats, such as fear and anxiety. So those negative emotions or negative psychological states, we do not want them because those can harm us psychologically. So we need to get rid of all these negative emotions or negative psychological states. That's also in the safety needs. And above safety needs, there's a love and belonging. It means that we want to have a sense of belonging to a certain social group. We want to belong to a certain family. We want to be a member of some kind of a organization or groups. We want to be accepted by other people. We want to belong. We want to be accepted by the society. We want to fit in the society. We want to get love from others. So that's the need of love and belonging. We always have that need if the safety and the physiological needs are satisfied. And above love and belonging, there is an esteem need. So what is esteem need? It's not about having good enough nutrition. It's not about having safety. It's not about having good relationships with others. It is about respect. It's about achievement. It's about accomplishment. It's about competence. They want to have a feeling that they are competent. They are capable of doing things. They are capable of achieving what they want to get. They want to get that those kind of things. They are able to do that. They are able to make achievements. They are able to be respected by others in the society. So that's the need for esteem or esteem needs. It's about personal achievements or capabilities. And above esteem need, there is self-actualization need. So we have talked about self-actualization. That's the central concept in humanistic psychology. So it basically means that actualizing your full potential, you just become whatever you are capable of becoming. You are always on the way. So, and also another really important feature of this theory is that only if the lower needs are satisfied, people start to seek the needs on the higher hierarchy, on the higher level. So, for example, only if the physiological needs are satisfied, people start to seek the safety needs. Only the safety and the physiological needs are satisfied, people start to seek the love and belonging needs. Otherwise, they will stuck on the lower needs, lower level needs. For example, if the safety needs are not satisfied, they will not seek love and belonging. They will not think about it. They are always thinking about how to protect myself from those physical threats or psychological threats. I would not think about I want to love or I want to be a member of some kind of a groups. So only the lower needs are satisfied, they start to seek the higher level needs. So, some people, based on this theory, some people will not seek esteem needs. They will not seek to be respected by other people or seek to make achievements because their lower level needs are not satisfied. For example, they are always hungry, so they are not thinking about esteem or achievements or love and belonging. And actually, you can see self-actualization is really hard to do, or for people to realize that they need to seek the self-actualization, because there are requirements. They need to satisfy all these needs to seek the self-actualization need. So self-actualization is actually pretty rare among people. So everyone has a need for physiological needs, but not everyone has the need for esteem or self-actualization. So that's the theory by Abraham Maslow. So there's some kind of a criticism about Maslow's hierarchy of needs theory. They think that, okay, there are 5 kinds of needs, that's for sure. There are physiological needs, there are safety needs, there's love, there's esteem, there's self-actualization. No problem. But it's not on a hierarchy. It's not the case that only the lower level needs are satisfied, the people start to seek the higher level needs. It's not the case. They may seek the needs on every level at the same time. For example, a beggar, homeless people, they may not satisfy with the physiological needs, but they at the same time they have the need for love and belonging. Everyone needs love, no matter they are hungry or not. It's not on a hierarchy. It's not this thing must be satisfied, that thing can be satisfied thing. It's more like people have all these needs at the same time. They want to fulfill all these needs. There's no conditions or something like that. So I think that makes sense. Abraham Maslow believed that there's a hierarchy. You need to climb on this hierarchy, on this pyramid. But a lot of people think that the humans are just having all these needs at the same time. So what do you think? You can have your own opinions. You can think about it. So let's finish Maslow and we go to another person. He is Carl Rogers. He is another very important figure in humanistic psychology. He developed a approach or theory of studying human nature. It's called a person-centered approach. Okay, yeah, person-centered approach. So here are some thoughts on human nature, his thoughts on human nature. So he believed that every human, every person is something called organism. So we heard about the word organic. So it's related to organism. So organism is something that is always changing, always updating, always growing. And every organism has purposes, has intentions. And in the organism, every part is influencing each other. So it's like an organic system. So organism is like a system that has its own purposes. So a human is an organism. A plant is also an organism based on this definition. An animal is an organism. A germ, a bacteria is also an organism. Even a virus is an organism. And other things are not live like cities. Every city is also an organism, or the economic society or economic system is also you can view a country's economic system as a organism because it's always changing. It's changing toward a certain direction. So let's talk about humans. So every human is an organism, has purposes, and it means that it grows toward a certain direction. It's always growing and changing. how exactly, how does exactly the organism grow? When the organism is alive, at every moment, this organism has experiences. So just the experience that we talk about, we have experience. We talk to others, we have experience with that person. We hike, we have experience with hiking. We run, we have experience with running. We uh, hang out on the street or hang out in an amusement park. We hang out in the Disneyland. We have experience, right? So every individual or person has experiences when he or she is interacting with the world. Every moment that the person has the experiences. So why does organism have experiences? Why does organism just is why doesn't why isn't a person just like a stone? A stone doesn't have experience. The stone just laying down on the ground, and that's it. It never changed, and it doesn't have any purposes. Why does organism or person have experience all the time? Because inside it there is a tendency called actualizing tendency. So it's slightly different from the concept of self-actualization. So actualizing tendency is a concept developed by Carl Rogers. So inside of every organism, there is a tendency called actualizing tendency. This tendency makes every person has experience all the time, enhance the experience all the time, maintain the experience all the time, actualize the experience all the time. This tendency is the roots is the root of all the motivation. So that explains why people have motivation. So why we want to eat ice cream, why we want to hang out with that guy, why we want to have good relationships with other people. Because we have the tendency called actualizing tendency. That's the root of all the motivation. And this tendency never disappears. It's always there. As long as I'm alive, I have the actualizing tendency. And also actualizing tendency has a direction toward growth. So that explains why we can grow, why we can move or change toward a positive direction. Actualizing has a direction toward a positive growth. So that's called the actualizing tendency. So we are something that always has experiences because we have that tendency. That's in our human nature. So with that tendency, we can grow, we can become better, we can have more knowledge, we can develop more skills, we can be mature, we can grow our physical body as well, and so forth. So self-concept is very important because the concept of me or I is formed during the process of experiencing. So when we have experiences all the time, we gradually know who we are. We gradually form the concepts of me and I. And in Psych 1, we learn about cognitive psychology. We know that people form schemata or concepts. People understand concepts. People use concepts to organize different kinds of information. So one concept is self-concept. It includes all information about ourselves, about the me or I. So gradually we can have a clear sense that I am this, I am like this, I am doing this kind of things, I have this kind of personalities or characteristics or character strength. So that's the product of all kinds of experiences that we have in our life. And also in the concept, there are some values. We have some values. We may value honesty. We may value courage, right? We may value learning. I love learning. So that's one of the values. So how do we get the values? Sometimes we get the values through our experiences. So we always have interactions with the world. We play. So when we are young kids, we play all the time. That's the way we get experiences. That's the way we have experiences. That's why people want to play. Why kids want to play, because they are always having experiences. And gradually, there are some values formed through these experiences. For example, when I feel tired, I relax. When I feel hungry, I eat. When I feel thirsty, I drink. When I feel like I should do something, I do it. That's courage. But some values are not from those experiences. Some values are like from other people. Some other people tell you, oh, you should do this in this situation, right? So sometimes the values are from our personal experiences, but sometimes the values are from others. Other people tell me what I should do under certain circumstances. So example of that is my mom said laziness is bad. Well, that's one value from my mom. Hardworking is good, also a value from my mom. But so that I cannot relax when I feel tired. That's the product, that's the artifact, consequence of this kind of values. You can see that these values are not from our direct experiences, are from other people. So we are not flexible to deal with the situation. So if I'm tired, I cannot relax because my mom told me that hard working is good. So I need to be hardworking all the time, no matter what I feel. So you can tell the difference. If that value is from our direct experiences, we have flexibility. We can move, we can act based on our feelings. But if the value is from others, sometimes we cannot do that. Sometimes we cannot act or behave based on our feelings. Our feelings, our behaviors, and thoughts are separated, divided, because these values are from other people. So why I talk about this? Because it influences future development. So we will talk about this later in the future. But right now, you at least know, oh, some values are from experiences, and some values are from other people. And also, there's another concept called a fully functioning person, also developed by Carl Rogers. So that's the person who has the self-actualization, or the best person that we can be. So means that that's the ideal state. That's the final state. So what are the characteristics of a fully functioning person? First, they are open to experience. Means that they accept all the experience that they have. They're open to them. They're not close to them. do not reject all some of the experiences. They accept all the experience. The second characteristic is that they trust their own judgments. They trust themselves. And the third characteristic is that they can make choices. They are able to make choices. They have the freedom. And the next characteristic is that their life is continuous. It means that their life is not fixed. Their life is pretty flexible. It's always changing. There's always growth. So they don't have to be this way. They don't have to be hardworking every time, at every moment. So life is pretty flexible. It's always changing. So these are characteristics of a fully functioning person. Okay, so we finished talking about humanistic psychology. That's the really big part in today's lecture. And we can move on to another topic that is about learning. We can talk about how people learn. And yeah, we'll talk about how people learn in later chapters, but we will talk about some basic stuff today. Okay, so right now we can talk about multiple intelligence. So intelligence, yeah, we all know what it is. So intelligence is something that signals how smart we are. But Howard Gardner, he is a professor at uh, Harvard. Howard Gardner, in 1983, he developed a theory called multiple intelligence theory. In that theory, there are different kinds of intelligence. There's not only one kind of intelligence. There's no single number can judge somebody's intelligence. So it means that, in other words, somebody's intelligence may include different numbers. So for most of the intelligence tests, if you do that test, then they will generate a number that tells you how smart you are. That number is around 100, so the average is 100. But multiple intelligence is conflicting with that kind of a theory. Multiple intelligence tells us that there are intelligence in different areas. We cannot use a single number to tell what the level of this person's intelligence is. So there are 8 types of intelligence. So let's look at it. So there are 8 types of intelligence, and there are, on the second column in this table there are descriptions of this intelligence. And on the third column is called learning style. It means that if people are higher on this particular intelligence, they will have a particular learning style. It means that they learn the stuff the best in this way if they are higher on this intelligence. For example, the first one is called verbal linguistic intelligence. What does it mean? It means that it's an intelligence for reading, understanding, and writing and memorizing words. So it's about there's a I was scared. There was a squirrel outside the window. Okay, let's continue. So yeah, people are higher on this intelligence, verbal linguistic. They're good at reading and writing. They're good at languages, reading, understanding, writing, and memorizing words. So if people are higher on this intelligence, verbal linguistic, what is the best learning strategy for them? It's best to learn by hearing and speaking because they are good at linguistic, verbal stuff. So they can hear the information, so they can memorize them and learn. And also they are good at speaking and writing. So by speaking and writing, they can solidate this knowledge and skills. And next one is musical rhythmic. It means that they are sensitive to rhythms, sounds, tones, and music. So you can tell the people hired on musical rhythmic intelligence, they're really good at music and rhythm. So they can learn the best through melody and music. And the next one is logical mathematical. They are good at logical analysis, reasoning, and numbers, and critical thinking. They're really good at math. They are really good at think using numbers and logic. So they're the best learning strategies for these people are learning by classifying information into different categories, looking for basic principles and critical thinking or abstract thinking, because the math is really abstract thinking. It's math, you can see it as the philosophy of numbers, philosophy of quantity. So math is actually really close to philosophy. So philosophy, is really abstract. It's thinking about some abstract principles. So if people are higher in logical and mathematical intelligence, they're really good at, I believe that they can learn well in philosophy and math. The other intelligence is, another intelligence is visual spatial. It means that they're good at seeing things, figuring out the relationships of physical objects, the visual, the spatial relationships, all these objectives, and also the judgment about space. So they're the best learning strategy for these people are learning by observing, seeing things and patterns. The next one is bodily kinesthetic. Kinesthetic means something about movement, something about the physical body. So this intelligence means that people are good at controlling their own bodies. So the best learning strategy for them is learning by doing. So they must learn by doing something. They must learn while they are moving. They're moving their bodies. So athletics and dancers, for these people, bodily kinesthetic intelligence is very important for them because they need to control their bodies to to have all these actions, dancers or athletics. And there is a one example. So there was a really famous and prestigious ballet dancer in the history of United States in the early 20th century. Her name is Jordan. I forgot the first name, but last name is Jordan. She was diagnosed with ADHD when she was a kid. Because why? Because she couldn't sit down there. She couldn't sit still. She must move. She was moving. She was walking and running and do other things all the time. She couldn't just sit there and listen to the teacher. So she couldn't perform well in the classroom because she just doesn't listen to the teacher and sit there. But she was really good at doing things, really good at controlling her own body. So finally, she became a really good dancer, a ballet dancer. So, people have different intelligence. People are good at different things. Uh, Not good at sitting down in the classroom and listen to the teacher doesn't mean that they're not smart or they have problems. Probably just because they have different kinds of intelligence. They're good at different things. Yeah, let's talk about the next one, intrapersonal. It means that they're good at understanding themselves. They're good at self-reflection. They know about themselves very well. If this kind of intelligence is high, the best learning strategy for them is to learn by engaging in independent projects. So they do things by their own, so they can learn well. The other one is interpersonal. It means that they are really good at cooperation. They are really good at maintaining the relationships with other people. Interpersonal skills really high. They are sensitive to other people. So for these people, they are good at learning by in the social environment. They can really learn well in the social environment. So they are better to participate in some group environments like a study session or a group study session. Yeah, it's really good for them to learn. And another one is naturalist. What is that kind? What is that intelligence? Naturalist people, they are good at observing and understanding the nature. They can learn things well about nature. And the last one is emotional intelligence. It means that that's the intelligence in managing people their own emotions. That's a competence in emotional domain. So they are really good at managing their emotions. They can manage well what kind of emotions to express to others, what kind of emotions to have, and that kind of thing. For this kind of people, they're really interested in the interdependence of people. So they can learn well in these topics about the relationships of people, about the how people show emotions, how people perceive emotions, how people manage emotions, or something like this. Okay, so these are 8 types of intelligence that people may have, and for everyone, there is some kind of accommodation. One person may be higher on visual spatial intrapersonal, but lower on musical rhythmic or verbal linguistic. Some people are higher on naturalist emotional and lower on visual spatial and intrapersonal. So it might be the case. So everyone has a different combination of this 8 intelligence. Some people may be higher on more than 1 or 3 or more intelligence. And yeah, that may be possible. From this intelligence, we can see that for different people with different kinds of intelligences, they have a different best learning strategy. They have a different learning styles. But a particular learning style is best for some people with some kind of intelligence. So there's no universal learning style that is the best for everyone. So there's certain learning style that is best for some people, not everyone. That's the message we can take from this theory. Okay, so the next topic about learning is the theory about fixed versus growth mindsets. So what is that? What is a fixed mindset? What is growth mindset? That is how you think of the nature of your personal qualities. That's a theory developed by the professor Carol Dweck in 1999. So Carol Dweck is the professor from Stanford currently. So let's think about this question. Do you think that you are born to be smart or you work hard to be smart? You can pause the video right now and think about this question. So you are born to be smart or you work hard to be smart? So that's the question to think about. How do you understand your personal quality, which is intelligence? So actually, Carol Dweck initially found that the kids in the school have had different understandings of their own intelligence. Some kids believe that they're smart when they are born, but some other kids believe that they're not born very smart, but they can work hard and be smarter. So that's how Carol Dweck found the two kinds of mindsets. One of them is growth mindset, and the other is fixed mindset. So for the people who have the growth mindset, they believe their own personal qualities, including intelligence, can be changeable. These personal qualities are malleable. They can be developed through effort. It means that they believe that if they put effort in it, they can grow this, they can develop these qualities, such as intelligence. They can be smarter if they try hard, if they put effort in learning. They can be smarter. They can learn math well if they put a lot of effort in doing math questions. So that's a reflection of the growth mindset. So growth is possible in their mind. In their mind, they believe that growth is possible. There can be growth. Another mindset is fixed mindset. That's totally different from growth mindset. In fixed mindset, personal qualities are set, believed to be set, unchangeable. So these personal qualities, including intelligence, they cannot be changed. It's always like that. Growth is not possible. There's no growth. If I am smart, before I'm smart right now, I'll be this smart in the future. If I'm not smart before, I don't believe that I'm smart right now. I don't believe I'll be smart in the future. I don't believe that I can put effort and make myself smarter, because I have a fixed mindset. I think that all the personal qualities are just like that all the time. There's no change. I heard some people say that I'm not a math person. That's the typical example of fixed mindset, because they mean that they were not born to be good at math at the first place. I don't believe that. I believe that everybody has the capability of having a stronger math ability if they work hard. Even though there are some guys are very, very smart, like Einstein. But for every one of us, for regular people, have we can grow our ability to do math. We can have growth to some degree. Probably we are not as smart as Einstein, but we can grow. And that's the key point. We can be smarter in the future. Although we are not smart enough right now, but it's okay. So that involves the consequences of these two kinds of mindsets. So for people who have growth mindset, the outcome is that if they make a goal in the classroom when they are in school, they tend to have a learning goal. It means that they want to learn and grow. So the major goal is to learn. It's not to other. It's not other things. The major goal is to work hard and learn and grow. They will focus on details of the task. When they learn, when they do the questions, they focus on the details of the task. Because they want to learn, they want to figure out how to solve this question. When they fail, the reaction to the failure is that they need to try harder because they believe that they can grow, their abilities can grow. So they have a explanation of the failure, which is that they do not try hard enough this time, so they will try harder next time to learn. As a result, they can have a better performance because they are really trying hard to focus on the details and figure out how to be better. And as a result, they have a better performance. For people who have a fixed mindset, their goal is not learning goal. Their goal is to show themselves and others they have a good performance. Why? Because they don't believe that they can grow. They don't believe that their personal qualities can be better. So they need to show others they are smart or they have a very good quality. They want to be good, but they don't believe that it can be better. So there's no change. It's always like that. So they need to show that they're like this at the first place. So their goal is to show the performance, to show off the performance. So that they focus on the result of the task. For example, the exam. They focus on the result of every exam. They want to use the result of exam to show others and show themselves that they are smart. They are good at this. When they fail, the reaction is that that's very intuitive. So the reaction to this failure is that they're not strong, they're not smart, they are not competent. They're anxious about failure because the failure is a signal that tells them they're not good enough. But they don't believe that it can be changed because they don't believe that. So that's why they have this kind of reaction to failure. As a result, they are more and more anxious. They do not focus on the details of task. They just want to show off the result of the task. Therefore, they have a worse and worse performance. So that's the final outcomes or consequences comparing the two mindsets. So different kinds of mindsets really influence people's performance, almost on everything, on their exams, on the school stuff, when people grow up, on the work, even on the relationships with a lot of people. Sometimes they don't believe that the relationships can be better. They don't believe that they can do something proactively to enhance the relationship. For some people who have fixed mindset. So for everything, there is a difference between growth mindset and the fixed mindset. So the message that we can take from this theory is that we'd better to have a growth mindset. So fixed mindset is not a really ideal choice for us to have. And one thing to mention is that it's not the case that we have the growth mindset all the time, or we have the fixed mindset all the time. It can be changeable. It's not really long term, I think. Probably for something we have growth mindset, for some other things we have fixed mindset. Probably at this moment we have the growth mindset, but another moment at another moment we have a fixed mindset. We may change the mind all the time and very quickly. So when you think about yourself, when you have a reflected, you can be aware what kind of mindset you have at that moment. You may have a lot of fixed mindset, and also you may have a lot of the growth mindset as well. Okay, so let's go to that's all about today's lecture, and it's pretty long, I know. That's all the stuff for this week, and let's go to the assignment, because for this week you have an assignment, which is first journal that you need to write. Well, now let's look at the assignment for this week. So this week is journal 1, and journal 1 is related to the lecture for this week, related to chapter 1. So in the journal, you can choose one out of the following 2 topics. So you don't have to write about 2 topics, but you choose one out of these 2. So the first possible topic is that you can briefly write about your understanding of theory of multiple intelligence. So we have just covered multiple intelligence, the theory about it. You can briefly write about how you understand this theory. And also the second thing that you need to write about is based on your intrapersonal reflection. So you reflect about yourself and your personal experiences, your past memory about what you have experienced before. Based on personal reflection and also personal experiences, talk about what type of learner you are. So there can be 8 types out of the 8 learning types. So you can talk about what type of learner you are, and or what intelligence you rely on the most, and give examples of it. So how do you know you're this kind of learner? You rely on this kind of intelligence. You can give examples. You can talk more than one type of intelligence. Depends on you. So you can talk some of them. But remember that we recommend that the length of the journal, each journal is between 1 page to 2 pages, double spaced. And the second topic you can write about is about the theory of hierarchy of needs. You can briefly write about your understanding of hierarchy of needs theory, and based on your personal experiences and your intrapersonal reflection, you can write about the needs that you are or used to be motivated to fulfill, and give examples of each type of the need that you write about. So you can write about more than one need. Yeah, you can write about the needs that you are motivated the most, that you are motivated or you used to be motivated, and give some examples of each type of the needs that you write about. So there are 5 types of needs in total. You can write 1 or 2 or 3 or even 5. as you want. And you can answer this question also. Do you think you are motivated to seek all 5 types of needs? So you can answer this question, whether you are only motivated to fulfill like only two of them, or you are motivated to seek all 5 of them. You can write about it. So you can choose one out of these 2 topics to write about. And this seminar will start at March 22nd, and will be due at the end of this week, which is a Sunday, March 28th, the last minute of 28th, which is 11:59 p.m. on March 28th. So make sure that you upload this this journal. And how to grade knowledge. Your understanding about multiple intelligence theory or hierarchy of needs theory accounts for 6 points. And the application of the knowledge accounts for 6 points. So you clearly discuss how the knowledge is applied in your own life. It's like this part. If you choose to write about multiple intelligence, this part is 6 points. Based on your personal experiences, like you can answer these questions. And also, if you choose a hierarchy of needs, these 2 parts are 6 points. So based on your personal experiences, you can answer these questions. And the format is 1.5 points. Spelling and grammar is 1.5 points. And that's it. I think that's it for this week. And next week, be sure to read the assigned readings. So for next week, you need to read chapter 2 and 3. And also see you next week.